when the woman you thought you knew never existed at all. Tonight, a desperate woman crashes through the rain into the wrong building, only to meet a stranger who calls her his wife. But she has no memory of him, no memory of the deadly secret she once carried. And the man hunting her? He's not her brother. He's the handler who stole her life, her child, and her truth. This is a story of identity shattered, power reclaimed, and a queen reborn from the ashes of lies. Stay until the end, hit that like button, and comment your city below. I want to see how far this story travels across the world. The ghost who forgot. The rain came down like bullets. Lena Carter's lungs burned as she sprinted through the waterlogged streets of Portland, her sneakers slapping against cracked pavement, water soaking through her jeans. Every breath tasted like copper and fear. Behind her, always behind her, she could feel him. Adrian. Her brother. Except the way he looked at her lately didn't feel brotherly at all. It felt like a hunter sizing up prey. 3 months. 3 months of running. She didn't know when it started. The feeling of being watched, the strange cars parked outside her apartment, the way Adrian's voice had changed on the phone, smoother, colder, like he was reading from a script. And then 2 weeks ago, she'd found the tracker sewn into the lining of her purse. That's when she ran. Now her vision blurred with rain and exhaustion as she rounded a corner into an alley she didn't recognize. The buildings here were different, older, industrial, with high brick walls and no windows facing the street. Her heart hammered against her ribs. Dead end? No. There, a door barely visible in the shadows, a sliver of amber light bleeding from beneath it. She didn't think. Thinking was a luxury she couldn't afford. Lena slammed her shoulder against the door, and it gave way, spilling her into warmth and darkness and the smell of expensive tobacco. She stumbled, catching herself against a leather-backed chair, gasping, dripping rainwater onto polished hardwood floors. The room fell silent. It wasn't a bar. It wasn't a restaurant. It was something else entirely, a space that felt carved out of the world, separate, untouchable. Men in tailored suits sat in high-backed chairs, drinks frozen halfway to their lips. A woman in a red dress stood by a marble fireplace, her expression unreadable. And at the far end of the room, behind a desk of dark mahogany, sat a man who looked like he'd been waiting for centuries. Jin Park. She didn't know his name yet, but she felt it, the weight of him, the gravitational pull. He was younger than the room suggested, maybe early 30s, with sharp features and darker eyes that seemed to see straight through skin and bone into whatever truth people tried to hide. His suit was black, perfectly tailored, and he didn't move, didn't even blink. He just looked at her and said, "You're late." Lena's breath caught. What? 3 years, 2 months, 16 days. His voice was low, controlled, with an accent she couldn't quite place, Korean maybe, softened by years elsewhere. "You're late. I don't know what you're talking about." She backed toward the door, but it had already closed behind her, and she heard the soft click of a lock engaging. Panic spiked through her chest. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Someone's following me. I just needed—" "I know who's following you." Jin stood, and the room seemed to shift with him, every person's attention snapping to focus. He moved around the desk with the fluid grace of someone who'd never had to hurry, never had to prove anything. "Adrian Hale, former intelligence operative, current freelance asset broker. He's been tracking you for 93 days. Lena's blood turned to ice. "How do you—" "Because I've been tracking him." Jin stopped 3 feet away from her, close enough that she could see the faint scar along his jawline, the way his eyes didn't waver. "The question isn't how I know. The question is why you don't." "I don't understand." "No, you don't remember." He tilted his head slightly, studying her like a puzzle with missing pieces. "Tell me, Lena Carter, what do you do for a living?" "I'm a graphic designer. I work freelance, mostly logos and—" "Wrong." The word cut through the air like a blade. Jin reached into his jacket and pulled out a photograph. He held it up and Lena's world tilted. It was her. Same dark hair, same angular face, same green eyes. But the woman in the photo stood in tactical gear, a weapon holstered at her hip, her expression cold and focused. Behind her, blurred but unmistakable, was Jin himself, younger, smiling, his arm around her waist. "That's not me," Lena whispered. "Yes, it is." "No, I don't even know how to hold a gun." Jin's expression didn't change. He put the photo on the desk and pulled out another. This one showed the same woman, her, standing in front of a whiteboard covered in surveillance photos, maps, encrypted coordinates. And another, her in an elegant black gown at some formal event, a champagne flute in one hand, her other hand resting on Jin's shoulder. "Stop," Lena breathed. "Stop it!" "Your name isn't Lena Carter." Jin's voice was soft now, almost gentle, but it carried the weight of absolute certainty. "It's Una Park. And you're my wife." The floor seemed to drop out from under her. "That's insane!" But her voice shook. "I don't know you. I've never seen you before in my life." "Because you chose not to." "What?" Jin gestured, and one of the men in suits approached with a tablet. Jin tapped the screen and turned it toward her. Security footage flickered to life, grainy, dated 3 years ago according to the timestamp. It showed a medical facility, sterile and cold. And there, strapped to a chair with electrodes attached to her temples, was the woman from the photographs. Was her. On the screen, the woman's eyes were open, lucid, staring directly at the camera. And she spoke. "If you're watching this, it means it worked. You don't remember me. You don't remember him. You don't remember what we found or why they want us dead. Good. That means you're safe. That means Jin is safe. Don't try to remember. Don't let them make you remember. Just live. Be normal. Be free." The woman on the screen took a shaky breath, tears streaming down her face. "I love you, Jin. I'm sorry I have to forget you, but this is the only way to keep you alive." The footage cut to black. Lena couldn't breathe, couldn't think. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the desk. "No, that's not... This is some kind of trick, You were an intelligence operative," Jin said quietly. "One of the best. They called you the Ghost because you could infiltrate anything, extract any information, disappear without a trace. We met 5 years ago when you were assigned to investigate my organization. You were supposed to bring me down. Instead, you fell in love with me. We got married in secret, and then you uncovered something that powerful people wanted to stay buried." "What? What did I uncover?" Jin's jaw tightened. "A network, a council of criminal syndicate leaders, corrupt government officials, and corporate oligarchs working together to control entire economies. Trafficking, money laundering, political assassinations, all coordinated through a single encrypted system. You found the key to that system, and they decided you were too dangerous to live." Lena shook her head, backing away. No, I'm a designer. I live in a studio apartment in Seattle. You live in a safe house I've been paying for. The design clients you work for? They're shell companies I created to give you an income without raising suspicion. Every part of the life you remember was built to protect you." "From who?" "From everyone." Jin's expression darkened. "After you found the evidence, they sent an extraction team. You barely escaped. You came to me and we made a plan. You'd erase your memories, voluntarily undergo a procedure that would wipe everything connected to your work, to me, to the investigation. You'd become someone else, someone safe, someone they wouldn't look for." "And Adrian?" Jin's eyes went cold. "Adrian Hale was your handler, the one person who knew your real identity. He was supposed to protect you during the transition. Instead, he saw an opportunity. He kept you under surveillance, fed you a false identity as his sister, and when the council put a bounty on the Ghost, he decided to collect." Lena's knees nearly gave out. She gripped the desk harder. "You're saying my brother wants to kill me for money. I'm saying the man you think is your brother was never your brother at all. He's a mercenary, and he's been hunting you for 3 months because someone finally figured out that Lena Carter and the Ghost are the same person." The door behind her rattled. A fist pounded against it. "Lena!" Adrian's voice muffled but unmistakable. "Lena, open the door. I know you're in there. We need to talk." Every muscle in Lena's body locked. She turned toward the door, then back to Jin, eyes wide with terror. "He found me. He was always going to find you." Jin moved past her, placing himself between her and the door. He didn't raise his voice, didn't reach for a weapon. He simply stood there, immovable, The question is what you do now. I can't. You can. Jin's gaze held hers, and for the first time, she saw something beneath the ice. Something raw. You're stronger than you remember. You always were. The pounding on the door intensified. Lena, don't listen to them. They're lying to you. I'm your family. I've been protecting you this whole time. Please, just open the door. Her hands shook. Her mind raced. Nothing made sense. But somewhere deep inside, beneath the panic and confusion, something stirred. A muscle memory, an instinct. The way Jin looked at her didn't feel like a stranger's gaze. It felt like coming home. What do I do? She whispered. Jin held out his hand. You trust me. Just for tonight. Give me one night to prove I'm telling the truth. And if I can't, I'll let you walk out of here. No questions, no conditions. You'll never see me again. And if you're lying, a ghost of a smile crossed his face. Then you'll remember how to kill me long before I can stop you. The door splintered. Wood cracked. Adrian was coming through. Lena looked at Jin's outstretched hand, at the photographs on the desk, at the security footage frozen on the tablet screen, her own face, streaked with tears, whispering words she didn't remember saying. She took his hand. The moment their fingers touched, something electric shot through her. Not a memory, but a feeling. Certainty. Rightness. Like a key sliding into a lock. Jin's grip tightened. He pulled her behind him as the door finally gave way and Adrian Hale stepped into the room. He looked exactly as Lena remembered him. Tall, lean, with sandy hair and blue eyes that had always seemed kind. But now, standing in the doorway with rain dripping from his jacket and a gun barely concealed beneath it, those eyes looked different, cold, calculating, empty. Step away from her, Park, Adrian said calmly. This doesn't concern you. Everything concerning her concerns me. Jin's voice was steady, but Lena could feel the tension radiating from him. You're not welcome here. Adrian's gaze flicked to Lena. Lena, sweetheart, these people are dangerous. They've been filling your head with lies. I'm here to take you somewhere safe. Safe? Lena's voice came out stronger than she expected. You've been chasing me for months. To protect you. By putting a tracker in my purse? Adrian's expression didn't change. You're confused. That's what they do. They manipulate. They twist reality. Come with me, and I'll explain everything. She's not going anywhere with you. Jin's tone dropped to something lethal. You sold her out, Hale. The moment the council learned she was still alive, you offered her up like a commodity. Is that what he told you? Adrian laughed, but there was no humor in it. Did he mention that he's the reason you're in danger? That his organization is the one the council wants destroyed? You erased yourself to protect him, Lena. And he let you. Lena's breath hitched. She looked at Jin, searching for a denial. He didn't give her one. Yes, Jin said quietly. I let her, because it was her choice. She chose to forget. She chose to live. And I honored that choice, even though it destroyed me. How noble! Adrian took a step forward. Two of Jin's men moved to intercept, but Adrian raised his hands in mock surrender. Look, I don't want violence. I just want to talk to my sister. I'm not your sister, Lena said, and the words felt like breaking glass, painful, irreversible. You're not my brother. You never were. Something flickered in Adrian's eyes, anger, or maybe just annoyance. Fine. You want the truth? You're worth $12 million, dead or alive. The council wants the encryption key you stole, and they'll pay handsomely for it. I've spent 3 years tracking you down, playing the devoted brother, keeping you close. And now that they've finally authorized the contract, I'm cashing in. The casual cruelty of it stole Lena's breath. But here's the thing, Adrian continued, pulling the gun fully into view now. I'd rather deliver you alive. Easier to extract information that way. So you can come with me willingly, or I can make this very unpleasant for everyone in this room. Jin didn't move. You won't leave here alive. Maybe not, but neither will she. Adrian's finger moved to the trigger. So what's it going to be, Park? Your pride or her life? The room held its breath, and then Lena felt it. A shift inside her mind like tectonic plates grinding into alignment. Images flashed, not memories but fragments. The weight of a weapon in her hand. The smell of gunpowder. the cold focus of muscle memory taking over. Her body knew what to do before her mind caught up. She moved, fast, faster than thought. Lena ducked low, slipping out of Jin's protective stance, her hand shooting out to grab a glass paperweight from the desk. She hurled it at Adrian with perfect accuracy, striking his wrist. The gun discharged, the bullet embedding in the ceiling as Adrian cursed and stumbled back. Jin's men were on him instantly, pinning him to the ground, disarming him with ruthless efficiency. But Lena barely noticed. She stood in the center of the room, breathing hard, staring at her own hands like they belonged to someone else. What? She looked up at Jin, eyes wide. How did I... Muscle memory, Jin said softly. He approached her slowly, carefully, like she was something fragile and dangerous all at once. Your body remembers, even if your mind doesn't. Adrian laughed from the floor, blood trickling from his split lip. You can't hide from what you are, Ghost. You're a weapon. That's all you've ever been. And weapons don't get happy endings. Jin crouched down, meeting Adrian's gaze with something dark and final. You're wrong. She's not a weapon. She's a person who learned to fight because people like you gave her no choice. And she's going to have the ending she deserves. You just won't be there to see it. He stood, nodding to his men. Take him to the holding room. Make sure he's comfortable. We'll decide what to do with him later. As they dragged Adrian away, still laughing, Lena felt her legs give out. Jin caught her, guiding her to a chair, his hand steady and warm. I don't understand, she whispered. I don't remember any of this. But my body, it just moved, like it knew exactly what to do. That's the thing about deep training, Jin said quietly, pulling up a chair across from her. It becomes part of you, reflexes, instincts. You can erase the memories, but you can't erase the person you became. Lena looked up at him, really looked at him for the first time, at the way he watched her with such careful attention, like he was memorizing every detail, at the exhaustion in his eyes, the kind that came from years of carrying something too heavy alone. Were we really married? She asked. Yes. For how long? 2 years, the best 2 years of my life. His voice was soft, but there was an ache in it that made her chest tighten. We got married in a small ceremony in Kyoto. Just us and 2 witnesses. You wore a white dress you found in a vintage shop, and you laughed the entire time because the sleeves were too long. Afterward, we ate ramen at a street stall, and you told me you'd never been happier. Lena's throat closed. She searched his face for any sign of deception, any crack in the story. But there was only truth there, raw and unguarded. I don't remember, she whispered. I know. Do you? She swallowed hard. Do you hate me for that? Jin's expression shifted, something breaking through the careful control. No. Never. You gave up everything to keep me safe. How could I hate you for that? But you lost me. I'd rather lose you and know you're alive somewhere in the world than keep you and watch them kill you. He reached out, then hesitated, his hand hovering in the air between them. I've spent 3 years making sure you stayed safe, that you had a life, even if it wasn't the one we planned. That was enough. Was it? Lena asked quietly. Jin's hand dropped. No, but it had to be. Silence settled between them, heavy with things unsaid. Finally, Lena spoke. Show me. Show me proof. Not just photographs, something real, something that will make me believe this isn't just an elaborate con. Jin stood, walking to a safe hidden behind a painting on the wall. He entered a code and pulled out a small wooden box. He brought it back to her, setting it gently on the table. Open it, he said. Lena's hands trembled as she lifted the lid. Inside was a collection of items that looked like artifacts from someone else's life. A wedding ring, simple, elegant, engraved with coordinates she didn't recognize. A dried flower, pressed and preserved. A photograph of her and Jin on a beach somewhere, both of them laughing, wind whipping their hair. And beneath it all, a handwritten letter. She picked up the letter, unfolding it carefully. The handwriting was hers. She knew it instantly, even though she couldn't remember writing the words. Jin, if you're reading this, it means I've already forgotten you. And I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But I need you to know that this was my choice, Not yours, not anyone else's. Mine. I found something that could destroy you, destroy us, destroy everything we've built. And the only way to keep you safe was to make myself disappear. Not physically. I thought about that. I swear I did. But you would have searched for me. You would have torn the world apart trying to find me. And they would have used that against you. So I chose this instead. I chose to forget, to become someone else, someone ordinary, someone they wouldn't look for. I don't know if I'll ever remember you, but I hope, God, I hope, that even without the memories, some part of me will still feel you, will still know somehow that I loved you with everything I had. Take care of yourself. Build the life we dreamed about, and if you ever find someone else who makes you happy, don't you dare feel guilty. I want you to be loved. I want you to be whole. But if I do come back, if some miracle brings me back to you, promise me one thing. Tell me the truth. All of it. Don't let me live in ignorance just to protect me. I'd rather face the danger with you than be safe and alone. I love you. I'll always love you, even when I can't remember why. Yours, Unalina's vision blurred. Tears spilled down her cheeks before she could stop them, hot and unbidden. She clutched the letter, her hands shaking so hard the paper crinkled. "This is my handwriting," she whispered. I wrote this." Jin nodded, his own eyes suspiciously bright. 3 years ago, the night before the procedure, you gave it to me and told me not to read it until you were gone." "Did you?" "I read it 10 minutes after you left." A broken laugh escaped him. "I've read it every day since." Lena looked down at the letter again, at the words that felt both foreign and intimately familiar. And then, like a dam breaking, something inside her cracked open. Not a memory. Not yet. But a feeling. A bone-deep certainty that this was real, that she had loved this man, that she had chosen to forget him to save his life, and that she would do it again if she had to. "What happened to the evidence?" she asked, her voice rough. "The encryption key. What happened to it?" Jin's expression hardened. "We don't know. You hid it before you erased your memories. Said it was insurance. That if anything happened to you, if I was ever in danger, the key would surface and destroy everyone involved. But you never told me where it was. So it's still out there, somewhere." "Yes. And the council knows it. That's why they want you alive. They think they can make you remember, make you tell them where it is." Lena's mind raced. "And if I can't remember, if I never remember, then they'll kill you to make sure no one else ever finds it." She looked up at him, and despite the fear clawing at her chest, despite the impossibility of the situation, she felt something else rising, something fierce and unbreakable. "I'm not going to die," she said. "Not today. Not like this." Jin's eyes gleamed with something like pride. "No, you're not. But I need answers, real answers. I need to know who I was, what I found, and why it was worth sacrificing everything for. Then we'll find them." Jin stood, offering his hand again. "Together." Lena took it, letting him pull her to her feet. And this time, when their hands touched, the feeling wasn't just electric. It felt like a promise. "Where do we start?" she asked. Jin looked toward the door where they'd taken Adrian, then back at her. "We start with the truth. All of it. And I warn you, it's going to hurt. You made these choices for a reason, Yuna. Remembering them might make you wish you'd stayed forgotten." Lena's jaw set. "I'm tired of running. I'm tired of living a half-life built on lies. Whatever the truth is, I can handle it." "Can you?" She met his gaze, unflinching. "There's only one way to find out." Jin studied her for a long moment, then nodded. "All right, but we do this my way. Controlled exposure, piece by piece. If it becomes too much, if you start breaking down, we stop. Understood?" "Understood." "And one more thing," Jin's voice softened. "I know I'm asking you to trust a stranger. I know that's unfair, but I need you to believe me when I say this. I will never let anyone hurt you again. Not Adrian, not the council, not anyone. You have my word." Lena's throat tightened. She didn't know why, but she believed him, every instinct she had. Every fragment of muscle memory and bone-deep recognition told her this man would burn the world down before he let her come to harm. "Okay," she whispered. Jin squeezed her hand once, then let go. He moved to the desk, pulling out files, tablets, photographs, an entire archive of a life she didn't remember living. "This is going to take all night," he said. "Maybe longer. Are you ready?" Lena looked at the evidence spread before her, at the pieces of a puzzle she'd deliberately shattered to save the man standing beside her. Outside, rain continued to fall, washing the streets clean. Inside, a ghost began the slow, painful process of becoming real again. "Yes," Lena said. "I'm ready." And somewhere in the darkness of her fractured mind, buried beneath layers of erasure and false memories, the ghost stirred, waiting, watching, ready to wake. The files spread across Jin's desk told a story Lena couldn't recognize as her own, yet every page felt like staring into a mirror that reflected someone else's face. Jin pulled up a chair beside her, close enough that their shoulders nearly touched. He opened the first folder with careful precision, like handling something fragile. Inside were surveillance photographs, dozens of them, all featuring the woman Lena was supposed to be. Yuna, the ghost. "This was taken in Prague," Jin said, pointing to an image of her, of Yuna, in a black cocktail dress, standing beside a silver-haired man in an expensive suit. "You were tracking an arms dealer named Viktor Kozlov. He'd been selling modified weaponry to terrorist cells across Eastern Europe. You spent 3 months infiltrating his inner circle." Lena studied the photograph. The woman's smile was perfect, practiced, revealing nothing. "How did I get close to him?" "You posed as an art dealer with connections to wealthy collectors in Asia. Victor fancied himself a patron of the arts." Jin's mouth twitched with something that might have been amusement. "You told him you could acquire a Monet that had been stolen from a museum in Berlin. He was obsessed with Impressionism." "Was there really a stolen Monet?" "No. But you made him believe there was. You showed him falsified provenance documents, arranged meetings with fake authentication experts, built an entire narrative around a painting that never existed." Jin pulled out another photograph, this one showing Yuna at a gallery opening, Victor's hand on her lower back. By the time he realized he'd been played, you'd already copied his entire encrypted server and disappeared. Lena traced her finger over the image. The woman looked confident, controlled, completely at ease in a world of deception. Did I have to sleep with him?" Jin's expression hardened. "You did what you had to do to complete the mission. But no, you drew lines, always." Relief flickered through her, unexpected and sharp. She moved to the next photograph. This one showed Yuna in tactical gear, crouched in what looked like a warehouse, weapon drawn, blood spattered across her vest. "Singapore," Jin said quietly. "Human trafficking ring. They were moving children through shipping containers, selling them to the highest bidders across Southeast Asia. You went in alone because the local authorities were compromised." "Alone?" "You preferred it that way. Said teams were liabilities, too many variables you couldn't control." Jin's voice carried an edge of old frustration. "I hated it. Every time you went dark, I didn't know if you'd come back." Lena looked at him. "But I always did. Until you didn't." The words hung in the air between them, heavy with loss. "Until the last mission, the one that changed everything." He pulled out a different folder, thicker than the others, marked with red tape. "This is what you found. What made you decide to erase yourself?" Lena's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were documents, photographs, financial records, communication transcripts. But it wasn't the evidence itself that made her breath catch. It was the scale of it. Names she recognized from news headlines, politicians, corporate executives, judges, military officials, all connected by threads of money, power, and blood. "What is this?" she whispered. "The consortium," Jin said. "That's what they call themselves. A coordinated network of the world's most powerful criminals working together to control global markets, political systems, entire countries. They don't compete. They collaborate. And they've been operating in the shadows for decades." Lena flipped through page after page. Shipping manifests for illegal weapons. Bank transfers in the hundreds of millions. Photographs of meetings in luxury hotels, private islands, remote estates. And in the margins, handwritten notes in her own writing, connecting the dots, building the web. How did I find this? By accident at first. You were investigating a money laundering operation in Seoul, standard work. But you noticed patterns, transfers that didn't make sense, shell companies that all trace back to the same source. You started digging, and the deeper you went, the more you uncovered. Jin leaned back, his voice tight. You became obsessed, spent months following leads, infiltrating organizations, stealing data. You knew it was dangerous. You knew they'd come for you eventually, but you couldn't stop. Why not? Jin met her eyes. Because you believed in something. In justice. In the idea that some things were worth fighting for, even if it cost you everything. His jaw tightened. I tried to convince you to walk away, to let someone else handle it. But you said if you didn't do it, no one would. That all it takes for evil to triumph is for good people to do nothing. Lena's chest ached. She didn't remember saying those words, but they resonated somewhere deep inside her, like an echo of a voice she'd lost. What was I planning to do with the evidence? Expose them. All of them at once. You'd built a case so airtight that even the most corrupt courts couldn't ignore it. You had proof of murders, trafficking, political assassinations, market manipulation, everything. The plan was to release it simultaneously to news organizations, law enforcement agencies, and activist groups across the world. Create a firestorm they couldn't contain. But I didn't. No, because they found out. Jin's voice turned cold. Someone inside your organization leaked your identity. The consortium sent a kill team. You barely escaped. When you came to me, you were bleeding, exhausted, and terrified. Not for yourself, but for me. You said they'd use me to get to you. That as long as you remembered me, I'd be a target. Lena's throat tightened. So I chose to forget. You chose to protect me. Jin stood abruptly, walking to the window, his back to her. I begged you not to. I told you we'd fight them together, but you'd already made up your mind. You said the evidence was hidden somewhere safe, somewhere even you wouldn't be able to find it without the right trigger. And then you walked into that clinic and let them take you away from me. The raw pain in his voice made Lena's eyes burn. She stood, moving toward him, driven by an instinct she didn't understand. Jin. He didn't turn around. I watched you leave. Watched them take you into that room, and when you came out 3 hours later, you looked right through me, like I was a stranger, like we'd never existed. I'm sorry, Lena whispered, though she didn't know what she was apologizing for, the choice she'd made or the fact that she couldn't remember making it. Don't be. You saved my life. Jin finally turned to face her, and his expression was carefully neutral again, all the emotion locked away. Adrian was supposed to help you settle into your new identity, give you a cover story, make sure you had the resources to live comfortably. Instead, he saw an opportunity. He kept you close, controlled your life, and when the consortium started looking for you again, he decided to cash in. Anger flared through Lena's chest, hot and fierce. He made me believe I was his sister, that I was safe. He made you believe you were ordinary, powerless, someone who needed protecting. Jin's eyes gleamed with something dark. But you were never powerless. Even without your memories, your instincts remained. That's why you ran when you found the tracker. That's why you survived 3 months on the run. The ghost is still in there, Lena. She's just sleeping. Lena looked down at her hands, remembering how they'd moved earlier, fast, precise, deadly. What if I don't want her to wake up? Then she won't. This is your choice. It's always been your choice. Jin stepped closer. But I need you to understand what's at stake. The consortium knows you're alive. They know the evidence still exists. And they will not stop hunting you until they find it or confirm you're dead. Adrian was just the first. There will be others. How many others? As many as it takes. Jin's voice was grim. These people have unlimited resources, unlimited reach. They've toppled governments, eliminated entire bloodlines. One woman, even one as skilled as you were, is nothing to them. Fear coiled in Lena's stomach, but beneath it something else stirred, something that felt like defiance. Then what do we do? We have 2 options. 1, I can get you out of the country. New identity, new life, somewhere remote where they'll never find you. You disappear completely, and this time you stay disappeared. And option 2? Jin's expression shifted, becoming something sharp and dangerous. We fight. We find the evidence you hid. We finish what you started. We burn the consortium to the ground and make sure they can never threaten you or anyone else again. Lena's heart hammered. Every rational part of her screamed to take option one, to run, to hide, to live whatever safe, quiet life she could salvage from the wreckage. But that same instinct that had made her throw the paperweight, that had taught her body how to fight without conscious thought, rebelled against the idea of running. If I choose option two, she said slowly, what are the chances we survive? Jin didn't lie to her. Low, very low. The consortium has killed better operatives than both of us combined. Even with all my resources, all my connections, we'd be fighting an uphill battle against an enemy that's had decades to entrench itself. But it's possible. Possible? Yes. Probable? No. Lena absorbed that, turning it over in her mind. Then she asked the question that had been burning in her chest since she'd read the letter. If I choose to run, will you come with me? Jin's eyes widened just slightly. For a moment, the careful mask slipped, and she saw the raw longing beneath it. But then he shook his head. No. Why not? Because I can't leave my people. My organization employs hundreds of people, some of them criminals, yes, but many of them just trying to survive in a world that gave them no other options. If I disappear, the consortium will tear through them looking for leverage. They'll die because of me. So you'd stay and fight alone. I'd do what I always do, protect what's mine. Jin's voice was steady, but Lena could hear the resignation in it, the acceptance of a lonely war he'd been fighting for years. She thought about that, about Jin standing alone against an empire of corruption, knowing he'd probably lose. About herself, living in some remote corner of the world, safe but hollow, always wondering if today would be the day they finally found her. About the woman in those photographs, confident, capable, fierce, who'd believed some things were worth fighting for. I want to see him, Lena said suddenly. Adrian, I want to talk to him. Jin frowned. Why? Because he's been in my life for 3 years. He knows things. About me, about how I've been living, about what triggers I might have. If I'm going to remember, maybe he can help. He tried to kill you. I know. But he also kept me alive when he could have sold me out earlier. There's a reason for that. Maybe it's just greed, but maybe it's something else. Either way, I need to know. Jin studied her for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, but I'm coming with you, and if he makes one wrong move, you'll kill him, I get it. Lena's mouth twisted. Seems like that's a common theme in my life. It kept you alive this long. They descended into the lower levels of the building, past the elegant facade of the bar area, into corridors that grew progressively darker and more industrial. Jin's men stood guard at regular intervals, all of them watching Lena with expressions that ranged from curiosity to wary respect. Do they know who I am? Lena asked quietly. They know who you were. The ghost is something of a legend in certain circles. Most of them never thought they'd actually meet you. What did I do to earn that reputation? Jin glanced at her. You took down a trafficking network that had been operating for 15 years. You exposed a corrupt senator who'd been taking bribes from weapons manufacturers. You infiltrated a terrorist cell and prevented an attack that would have killed thousands. He paused. And you did it all without ever killing anyone who didn't deserve it. In this world, that makes you either a saint or a fool. Which one did you think I was? Neither. I thought you were someone who still believed the world could be better than it was. His voice softened. I thought you were remarkable. They stopped at a reinforced door. Jin entered a code and the lock disengaged with a heavy click. Inside, Adrian sat in a chair bolted to the floor, his hands cuffed to the armrests. He looked up when they entered, and despite the split lip and bruised eye, his expression remained unnervingly calm. Well, Adrian said, his voice carrying that same easy charm Lena had once found comforting. The happy couple. How touching. Lena pulled up a chair sitting across from him. Up close, she could see the calculation in his eyes, the way he assessed angles and options even now. Why did you do it? Do what? Try to collect on the biggest bounty of my career? That's called good business, sweetheart. Don't call me that. Adrian's smile didn't reach his eyes. Right. I forgot, you're the ghost now. Or maybe you're Yuna. Or maybe you're still Lana. Hard to keep track when you don't even know yourself. You made me believe we were family, Lena said, her voice steady despite the anger simmering beneath it. You spent 3 years building that lie. Why? Because it was easier than the truth, and because you were useful. Adrian leaned back as far as his restraints allowed. When they assigned me to manage your transition, I saw an opportunity. A skilled operative with no memory of her capabilities, completely dependent on me for her sense of reality? That's leverage. So I created the perfect cover. Loving brother, protective family, someone you could trust completely. And then you sold me out. When the price was right, yes. He shrugged. Don't take it personally. This is what I do. I find valuable assets and I monetize them. You just happen to be worth more than most. Jin's hand settled on Lena's shoulder, a silent reminder of his presence. Tell her about the child. Every muscle in Lena's body locked. What? Adrian's expression flickered, just for a moment, something almost like discomfort crossing his face. Then it was gone, replaced by that same cold calculation. That's really not my story to tell. Tell her, Jin's voice dropped to something lethal, or I'll make the last hours of your life very unpleasant. Adrian sighed. Fine. You want the whole truth? You and Jin had a son, born 4 months before you went into hiding. You gave birth in a private clinic in Osaka. No records, no trail. The boy's name is Kai. The world tilted. Lena's breath stopped in her chest. I have a son? Had, Adrian corrected. Past tense. When you decided to erase your memories, you knew you couldn't take care of a child. Couldn't be a mother when you didn't even know you'd given birth. So Jin took him, hid him away somewhere safe. Lena turned to Jin, her vision swimming. You have our son? Where is he? Jin's jaw was tight, his eyes dark with old pain. He's safe, protected. That's all you need to know right now. That's all I need to... Fury exploded through her chest. You've been talking to me for hours about trust and truth, and you didn't think to mention that I have a child? I was going to tell you when you were ready. When I was ready? I deserved to know immediately. Did you? Jin's voice cracked like a whip. Did you deserve to know that you have a 3-year-old son who doesn't recognize you, who calls someone else mama because his real mother chose to forget he existed? The words hit like physical blows. Lena staggered back, her hand pressed to her chest. I wouldn't. You did. Jin's expression was anguished now, all the careful control shattered. You held him for 2 hours after he was born. You memorized every detail of his face, and then you kissed his forehead and told me to keep him safe, to raise him away from all of this, to never let him know what you'd sacrificed for him. Tears streamed down Lena's face. Where is he? I can't tell you that. Not yet. Not until I know you're truly committed to staying. Because if you walk away again, if you choose to disappear, I won't put him through the trauma of losing you twice. I would never... You already did. Jin's voice broke. You already chose to leave him once. How do I know you won't do it again? The accusation hung between them, cruel and justified all at once. Lena wanted to scream, to rage, to demand he take her to their son immediately. But the rational part of her, the part that was starting to remember how to think tactically, understood his fear. She had abandoned them. Both of them. For good reasons, maybe, but the result was the same. You're right, she said quietly. I did leave, and I can't promise I won't make that choice again, because I don't even remember making it the first time. But I can promise you this. Right now, in this moment, I want to know my son. I want to be his mother, and I will do whatever it takes to make that possible. Jin's shoulders sagged. He turned away, one hand pressed to his face. He has your smile, your laugh, the way you used to look at the world like it was full of puzzles waiting to be solved. His voice was raw. Every day I see you in him, and every day it's like losing you all over again. Lena crossed to him, her hand hovering near his shoulder, uncertain. Then let me come back. Let me try. It's not that simple. Why not? Because you're not her anymore. Jin spun to face her, and the anguish in his eyes stole her breath. You're Lena. You're someone who designs logos and lives in a studio apartment and drinks coffee from the same mug every morning. You're normal, safe. And if I let you back into this world, if I let you become the ghost again, I'm killing her. I'm killing the person you chose to be. Maybe that person was never real, Lena said softly. Maybe she was just a safe dream I had while the nightmare waited to catch up. From his chair, Adrian laughed bitterly. How poetic. But he's right, you know. The ghost destroyed everything she touched. Every mission left bodies behind. Every relationship was a weapon. You were brilliant, yes, effective. But you were also broken in ways that sleep and memory loss couldn't fix. Shut up, Jin snarled. Why? Because the truth hurts? Adrian met Lena's eyes. You want to know who you really were? You were a woman who couldn't maintain a single genuine connection, who lied so well even you couldn't tell the difference anymore, who chose violence and vengeance over peace every single time. And yet she chose to protect Jin, Lena said quietly. She chose to sacrifice everything to keep him safe. That doesn't sound like someone incapable of connection. Or maybe it was just another mission, another role to play. Adrian's smile was cruel. How do you know love wasn't just another cover story she convinced herself to believe? Because I was there, Jin said, his voice steel. I saw her when the mask came off. When she was just Yuna, tired and scared and human, and she was real. More real than you'll ever understand. Lena looked between them. Adrian with his poisonous truths, Jin with his desperate faith. Two men who claimed to know her better than she knew herself, offering competing visions of who she'd been, but neither of them could tell her who she was now. I need time, she said finally. Time to process this. Time to figure out what I want. We don't have time, Jin said. The consortium can wait until morning. You said yourself they want me alive. They won't make a move tonight. Lena straightened, drawing on reserves of strength she didn't know she had. Give me until dawn. Let me think, and then I'll give you my answer. Jin studied her for a long moment, then nodded. There's a room upstairs, private, secure. You can rest there. What about him? Lena gestured to Adrian. He's not going anywhere. Jin's expression darkened. We'll deal with him after you decide what happens next. Adrian's laugh was bitter. My fate in the hands of the woman I betrayed. How fitting. Lena looked at him. This man who'd shaped 3 years of her life with lies, who'd been brother and betrayer and stranger all at once. Did you ever care about me at all? Even a little? Something flickered in Adrian's eyes. For just a moment, the mask slipped, and she saw something that might have been regret. It would have been easier if I hadn't. It wasn't an answer, but maybe it was the only truth he could give. Lena turned and walked out, Jin following close behind. They ascended back through the building in silence, the weight of revelations pressing down like physical force. When they reached the private room Jin had mentioned, elegantly furnished, with a view of the rain-soaked city, she paused at the threshold. Thank you, she said quietly, for telling me, even the parts that hurt. I should have told you about Kai immediately. That was wrong of me. You were protecting him. I understand that. Lena met his eyes. Can I ask you something? Anything. Do you still love me? The real me, not the idea of me. Not the ghost or Yuna or whoever you think I used to be, but me, right now, standing here, confused and scared and not even sure who I am anymore. Do you love this version of me? Jin's breath caught. He looked at her like she'd struck him, like the question had found some vulnerable place he'd been protecting. When he finally spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. I fell in love with Yuna because she was brilliant and fierce and refused to compromise her principles even when it cost her everything. I watched Lena from a distance for 3 years, making sure she was safe, and fell in love with her kindness, her quiet creativity, the way she smiled at strangers on the street. And now you're standing here, some amalgamation of both of them, and I... He stopped, swallowing hard. Yes, I love you, whatever version you become. I think I'm incapable of anything else. Lena's chest ached. She wanted to cross the distance between them, to close the gap and see if touch could bridge the chasm memory had created. But she held back, uncertain, afraid of making promises she might not be able to keep. "I don't remember loving you," she said honestly. "But when I read that letter, when I heard what she was willing to give up, I think I want to. I think some part of me still does, even if I can't remember why." "That's enough," Jin said. "For now, that's enough." He left her there, closing the door softly behind him. Lena stood alone in the elegant room, rain pattering against the windows, and finally let herself break. She sank to the floor, knees pulled to her chest, and sobbed for the life she couldn't remember, the child she'd abandoned, the man she'd loved enough to erase. She cried for Lena Carter, the safe illusion, and for the ghost, the dangerous truth. She cried until she had no tears left, until she was hollow and exhausted and empty. And then, in that emptiness, something began to surface. Not memories, not yet, but impressions, feelings. The ghost of muscle memory that went deeper than physical training. She remembered, no, not remembered, but felt what it was like to be certain of her purpose, to know exactly who she was and what she was fighting for, to look at the world's darkness and decide to be the light that exposed it, no matter the cost. The ghost hadn't been broken. She'd been forged, and maybe, just maybe, she was exactly who Lena needed to become. Dawn broke gray and cold over the city, but Lena had been awake for hours. She stood at the window watching the streets below come alive with morning traffic, her reflection ghosted in the glass, a stranger wearing her face. The door opened behind her. She didn't turn, already knowing it was Jin by the careful way he moved, the particular rhythm of his footsteps. "Did you sleep?" he asked. "No." Lena's voice was hoarse from crying. "Did you?" "No." They stood in silence for a moment, two people bound by a history only one of them could remember. Finally, Lena turned to face him. "I want to see the evidence again. Everything I collected on the consortium. I need to understand what I thought was worth destroying my life for." Jin nodded slowly. "All right, but first you need to eat. You haven't had anything since yesterday." "I'm not hungry." "Your body doesn't care." He gestured toward the door. "There's a kitchen upstairs, private. We can talk while you eat." Lena wanted to argue, but her stomach chose that moment to growl traitorously. She followed Jin through corridors she was starting to recognize, up another flight of stairs to a space that felt more like a home than the fortress below. The kitchen was modern but warm, with copper pots hanging from hooks and herbs growing in small pots on the windowsill. Jin moved through the space with practiced ease, pulling ingredients from the refrigerator. "Sit. I can help." "You don't know where anything is." He cracked eggs into a bowl with one hand, whisking them with the other. "Besides, I need something to do with my hands, or I'll go insane." Lena slid onto a bar stool, watching him work. There was something meditative about his movements, each action precise and purposeful. "You cook?" "Someone had to. You were terrible at it." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "You could disarm a bomb or forge documents in 6 different languages, but you couldn't make rice without burning it." "What else was I terrible at?" Jin poured the eggs into a heated pan, the sizzle filling the silence. "Dancing. You had no rhythm. Used to step on my feet constantly." He added vegetables, cheese, folding everything into an omelet with practiced efficiency. "You were also terrible at asking for help, at admitting when you were afraid or hurt or overwhelmed. You'd rather bleed out alone than show vulnerability." "Sounds lonely." It was, for both of us. Jin plated the omelet and set it in front of her along with toast and coffee. "But you were trying, learning to let me in. We were getting better at it." Lena took a bite. The food was perfect, fluffy, flavorful, exactly what her empty stomach needed. "Tell me about Kai, please." Jin's hand stilled on the counter. For a long moment, he didn't speak. Then slowly, he pulled out his phone and scrolled through photos. He turned the screen toward her. The boy in the image couldn't have been more than 3 years old, with Jin's dark hair and sharp features, but Lena's green eyes and the shape of her mouth. He was laughing at something off camera, his whole face lit up with joy. Lena's breath caught. Her hands trembled as she took the phone, staring at this child she'd created and forgotten. "He's beautiful." He is. Jin's voice was soft. He's also stubborn, curious, fearless in ways that terrify me. He climbs everything, asks 1,000 questions, and refuses to sleep unless someone reads him 3 stories. Pride and pain warred in his expression. He's so much like you, it hurts. Where is he? Safe house in the mountains, 2 hours from here. Protected by people I'd trust with my life. Jin met her eyes. He thinks his mother died when he was a baby. That's the story we told him. It was easier than trying to explain the truth. And who does he think raised him? My sister. She's been his primary caretaker since you went into hiding. She loves him like her own. The words should have brought comfort, but instead they felt like knives. Another woman raising her son, being called Mama, receiving all the love Lena should have been there to earn. Does he ask about me? Sometimes. We told him you were brave, that you loved him very much, that you would have stayed if you could. Jin's jaw tightened. He keeps a photograph of you by his bed, the only one we have from before. He says goodnight to it every evening. Lena's eyes burned. She set the phone down carefully, afraid she might shatter it. I want to meet him. I know, but not yet. Not until this is over. I won't bring him into danger. Then we end it. Lena met his gaze, and something had shifted in her expression, something harder, more resolved. We find the evidence. We expose the consortium. We finish what I started so our son can grow up without targets on his back. You're sure? Once we start down this path, there's no turning back. They'll know you're actively working against them. The attacks will escalate. I'm sure. Lena pushed the plate away, her appetite gone. Show me everything. I need to know what we're fighting. They returned to Jin's office, and this time when he spread the files across the desk, Lena studied them with different eyes. Not as a stranger trying to understand someone else's work, but as an operative analyzing intelligence. And as she read, fragments began to surface. Not memories exactly, but recognition. Patterns she'd noticed before. Connections that felt familiar. This network here, she said, pointing to a cluster of shell companies. They're all registered in the Cayman Islands, but the actual operations run through Singapore. And these transfers happen on the 15th of every month, always in increments just below the reporting threshold. Jin leaned forward, watching her. Yes, that's exactly what you noted 3 years ago. How did you know? I don't know, I just do. Lena's finger traced another line. And this politician, Senator Morrison, he's taking payments disguised as campaign contributions, but the real money comes through his wife's consulting firm. She doesn't actually consult on anything. It's just a funnel. You're remembering. No, not remembering, but my brain recognizes the pattern, like my body knew how to fight without my mind telling it to. Lena flipped through more pages, her heart racing. There's a central hub. Somewhere all these threads converge. A server, a database, something physical that connects everything. That's what I was looking for, wasn't it? Yes. You believe the consortium kept all their records in one secure location. Redundant backups, but one primary source. If we could access it, we'd have everything. Every transaction, every operation, every person involved. And I found it. You said you did, but you never told me where. You said it was too dangerous, that if I knew, they'd torture it out of me. Jin's expression darkened. You hid the location and the access codes somewhere only you could retrieve them, somewhere tied to your memories. Lena closed her eyes, trying to push past the fog in her mind. What was I doing right before I went into hiding? What was the last mission? Jin pulled out another file. You'd infiltrated a private event in Monaco, black tie charity gala, but really a meeting place for consortium members. You went as my date. We'd been doing that more often, using our relationship as cover. You slipped away during dinner, accessed a restricted area, and downloaded files from a secure terminal. And then? And then you came back to the table white as a sheet. You wouldn't tell me what you'd found, but you said we needed to leave immediately. We flew back to Seoul that night. 3 days later, the kill team came. Jin's voice tightened. You'd discovered something in those files, something that made you certain they'd never stop hunting you. What was in the download? I don't know. You encrypted it before I could see. You said you'd tell me everything once you'd verified the information. He gestured to a tablet on the desk. The encrypted file is still here. We've tried every password combination imaginable, but nothing works. Lena picked up the tablet, staring at the locked file. The encryption was military grade, unbreakable, without the correct key. What if the password is something only I would know, something from my past before you met me? That's what we assumed, but we don't know enough about your history to even begin guessing. Then we asked someone who does. Lena stood abruptly. Adrian, he was my handler. He knows my background, my training, everything. If anyone can guess what password I'd use, it's him. Jin's expression hardened. I don't trust him. Neither do I. But we don't have a choice. Lena moved toward the door. Besides, he's locked up and outnumbered. What can he do? They found Adrian exactly where they'd left him, though he looked worse for wear, unshaven, exhausted, but still wearing that infuriating smirk. He looked up when they entered. Back so soon? I'm touched. Lena pulled up a chair, the tablet in her hands. I need you to help me crack an encryption. Adrian's eyebrows rose. And why would I do that? Because if you don't, Jin will kill you, slowly. She held up the tablet. But if you help us, we might let you live. Might? Not exactly compelling odds. It's better than the alternative. Lena leaned forward. You know me, Adrian. You know how I think, what memories I'd use for passwords. You've been inside my head for 3 years. I've been inside Lena Carter's head. The ghost is a different person entirely, but Adrian's eyes had sharpened with interest. He gestured with his cuffed hands. Let me see it. Jin moved to uncuff one hand, keeping the other secured. Adrian took the tablet, studying the encryption interface with the focused intensity of a professional. This is your work, he murmured. I recognize the layering. You always did like to make things complicated. He tried a few combinations, each one failing. Not your birthday, not Jin's, not any of the standard fallbacks. What about my real name, Seth? Lena asked. From before I became an operative. What was it? Adrian glanced at her, something unreadable in his expression. You don't remember? If I remembered, I wouldn't be asking. Fair point. He returned his attention to the tablet. You were born Sarah Mitchell, grew up in a small town in Ohio. Parents died in a car accident when you were 15. You went into foster care, got recruited into intelligence work at 18. He typed as he spoke. Nothing. Not your birth name, not your parents' names, not the town. What else? What other memories might be significant? You had a mentor, woman named Victoria Chen. She trained you, shaped you into the operative you became. You idolized her. Adrian tried several more combinations. Still nothing. Lena's frustration mounted. There has to be something, some memory that mattered enough to use as a key. Unless, Adrian paused, his fingers hovering over the screen. Unless the password isn't about a memory at all. You always said the best hiding places were the ones in plain sight. What if the password is something you'd see every day, something so obvious you'd never forget it even without your memories? Like what? Adrian's eyes flicked to Jin, then back to Lena. A slow, bitter smile crossed his face. Try Kai's birthday. Month, day, year, no spaces. Lena's hands shook as she took the tablet back. She didn't know her son's birthday, had to look to Jin for the numbers. He recited them quietly, and she typed them in. The file unlocked. For a moment, no one moved. Then Lena opened the file, and the screen filled with data. Spreadsheets, scanned documents, video files, communications logs. Thousands of pieces of evidence, all meticulously organized and cross-referenced. But it was the executive summary at the top that made her blood run cold. The consortium isn't just criminal, she read aloud. It's governmental. Half the members are elected officials, military leaders, intelligence directors. They're not working outside the system. They are the system, and they're planning something massive. Jin moved behind her, reading over her shoulder. His face went ashen. Project Collapse. What is that? Lena scrolled through the document. It says here they're planning to trigger simultaneous economic crashes in 12 countries, destabilize governments, and then, her voice failed, and then install their own people in positions of power during the chaos. They're planning a coordinated coup, a global one. When? Jin demanded. Lena found the timeline. 6 months. They've been laying the groundwork for years, but the trigger date is 6 months from now. That's impossible. You can't just collapse 12 economies simultaneously. You can if you control the central banks, the major investment firms, and the regulatory agencies. Lena's voice was hollow, and according to this, they do. All of it. They've been infiltrating these institutions for decades, placing their people in key positions, waiting for the right moment. Adrian laughed from his chair, the sound sharp and humorless. Now you understand why they wanted you dead. You didn't just find evidence of crimes. You found evidence of treason on a scale that would reshape the world. And I hid it. Lena looked at Jin. I found this, and I hid it because I knew if I released it immediately, they'd kill me before anyone could verify it. I needed time. Time to build a distribution network. Time to ensure the evidence couldn't be suppressed. So where is it? Jin asked. The master copy, the full archive. Where did you hide it? Lena scrolled through the file, looking for clues, and then she found it. A single line at the bottom of the summary, written in a different font. The place where we promised forever. Jin's breath caught. That's your handwriting, your note to yourself. But what does it mean? Lena stared at the words, frustration building. What place? I don't know. We never... Jin stopped, his eyes widening. Wait, the night before you went into hiding, you asked me to take you somewhere. You wouldn't tell me where, just gave me coordinates. We drove for 3 hours to a lighthouse on the coast, abandoned, halfway to falling into the sea. Why there? You said it was where you'd decided to accept my proposal, that you'd been driving along the coast, running from your feelings, and you'd seen the lighthouse, and something about it made you stop, made you realize running wasn't the answer. Jin's voice grew urgent. You said it was the place where you'd promised yourself forever with me, even though you were terrified of it. Lena's heart raced. That's where the evidence is. It has to be. We need to leave now. If the consortium knows you're alive and active, they might figure out the location. Or, Adrian interjected, it's a trap. 3 years is a long time. They could have found it already, could be waiting for you to lead them right to it. Then we'll be ready. Jin moved to the door, signaling his men. Get a team together. Full tactical gear. We leave in 30 minutes. As his people scrambled to prepare, Lena found herself alone with Adrian again. She studied him, this man who'd worn the mask of brother so convincingly. Why did you tell us about Kai's birthday? She asked quietly. You could have kept it to yourself. Adrian's expression was unreadable. Maybe I'm tired of playing the villain in your story. You sold me to people who want to kill me. That's not playing a villain. That is being one. Perhaps. He leaned back, the cuffs clinking against the chair. Or perhaps I'm a realist who understands that in this world, idealism gets you killed. You wanted to save everyone, expose everything, fix a system too broken to be fixed. And where did it get you? You lost 3 years of your life, lost your child, lost yourself. But I'm still alive. And so is Jin, and we still have a chance to stop them. For now. But how long do you think that will last once you stick your head up again, once you make yourselves targets? Adrian shook his head. You should take Jin's first option. Run. Disappear. Let the world burn if it wants to. At least you'd have each other. Is that what you would do? I did do that. I watched the world burn and profited from the flames. It's easier that way, cleaner. But something in his voice suggested he didn't entirely believe his own words. Lena stood, moving toward the door. Then she paused, looking back at him. For what it's worth, there were moments when I believed you cared, when you felt like family. Maybe that was all manipulation, but maybe part of it was real. Either way, I hope you figure out who you want to be before it's too late. She left him there, his expression troubled in ways it hadn't been before. The convoy that assembled in the underground garage looked more military than civilian. 3 black SUVs, bulletproof and armed. Jin's men moved with practiced efficiency, loading weapons and equipment. Lena watched them, and again felt that strange disconnect between what her mind knew and what her body remembered. She could identify every weapon, knew instinctively how to field strip and reassemble them, understood tactical formations and defensive positions. The ghost was waking up, whether she wanted her to or not. Jin appeared beside her holding out a Kevlar vest, Put this on. I don't know how to fight. Your body does. And these men know that. They'll follow your lead if it comes to it. He helped her into the vest, his hands gentle despite the urgency. But I'm hoping it won't come to that. We get in, retrieve the evidence, get out. Clean and simple. Since when is anything about this situation clean and simple? Fair point. Jin checked his own weapon, a sleek handgun that looked well used. Stay close to me. If something goes wrong, I know. Run first, fight second. Lena managed a weak smile. Basic survival. Actually, I was going to say trust your instincts. The ghost didn't survive this long by running. Jin's eyes held hers. You're stronger than you think. You always were. They loaded into the center vehicle, Jin driving with Lena in the passenger seat and 2 guards in the back. The convoy pulled out into early morning traffic, heading north toward the coast. The city gradually gave way to suburbs, then rural highways, then the wild coastline where cliffs dropped into churning ocean. Lena watched the landscape blur past, her mind racing. Somewhere ahead was evidence that could expose a conspiracy spanning decades, implicating some of the most powerful people in the world. Evidence she'd risked everything to obtain, then hidden so thoroughly even she couldn't find it. Jin, she said quietly, what happens if we succeed? If we release this evidence and it actually works? If the consortium falls and we survive? What happens to us? Jin's hands tightened on the wheel. What do you want to happen? I don't know. That's the problem. I don't know if I'm Lena Carter or Una Park or the ghost or some combination of all three. I don't know if what I feel for you is real or just my body remembering what my mind forgot. And I don't know if I can be the mother Kai deserves when I can't even remember giving birth to him. You don't have to figure it all out today. Don't I? We could die today. Any of us could. And I'd die not knowing who I really am. Jin was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, You want to know what I think? I think identity isn't about memory. It's about choice. Every moment we choose who we want to be. You chose to protect me 3 years ago. You chose to fight back yesterday. You're choosing to see this through today. Those choices define you more than any memory ever could. And what about love? Can you choose that too? I think love is the only thing we truly choose. Jin glanced at her, his expression raw. I fell in love with you every day for 2 years, choosing you over and over. When you forgot me, I chose to love you anyway, from a distance, keeping you safe even though it destroyed me. And if you never remember, if you never feel the same way again, I'll still choose you because that's what love is. It's a choice you keep making even when it hurts. Lena's eyes burned. She reached over, placing her hand on his. I want to choose you too. I'm just afraid I don't know how. Then we'll figure it out together. Jin squeezed her hand. One choice at a time. The lighthouse appeared on the horizon an hour later, a crumbling tower of white stone perched on a cliff edge, surrounded by warning signs and chain-link fence. The convoy pulled off onto a dirt road, parking in a grove of windswept trees. Jin's team spread out immediately, establishing a perimeter and checking for threats. Lena stepped out into the salt wind, staring up at the lighthouse. It looked abandoned, forgotten, slowly being reclaimed by the elements. But something about it called to her, a tug of recognition that went deeper than conscious memory. I've been here before, she whispered. Yes. Jin stood beside her, his hand resting on the weapon at his hip. You stood right where you're standing now and told me you'd marry me. That you'd choose me even though it terrified you. That this place would be our promise to each other. That no matter how dark things got, we'd be each other's light. Lena closed her eyes, trying to feel what she'd felt that day. But the memory remained frustratingly out of reach, like trying to grasp smoke. Let's find what I hid here, she said, before anyone else does. They approached the lighthouse carefully, Jin's men flanking them with weapons drawn. The door hung open on rusted hinges, and inside the air smelled of decay and ocean. The interior was gutted, equipment long since removed, nothing remaining but concrete walls and the spiral staircase leading up. Where would you hide something here? Jin asked, his voice echoing in the empty space. Lena turned slowly, scanning the structure with tactical eyes she didn't remember learning to use. Somewhere accessible but not obvious. Somewhere that wouldn't deteriorate in 3 years. She moved to the staircase, testing the steps. Up. It has to be up where the light mechanism would have been. They climbed carefully, the metal groaning under their weight. Each step brought them higher into the tower until they emerged onto the observation platform at the top. The view was breathtaking, endless ocean stretching to the horizon, cliffs dropping away below, the world reduced to wind and water and stone. And there, bolted to the underside of the railing, was a waterproof case. Lena's heart stopped. There! Jin called down to his men to keep watch, then helped her pry the case free. It was locked with a biometric scanner, fingerprint recognition. Lena pressed her thumb to it, and after 3 years of waiting, the lock disengaged. Inside was a hard drive, small, encrypted, containing everything. "We did it," Lena breathed. "We actually found it." But Jin was staring at the horizon, his expression grim. "We have a problem." Lena followed his gaze up. In the distance, 3 helicopters approached, sleek, black, military grade. The consortium had found them. Jin's hand shot to his radio. "Hostile incoming, 3 birds armed. Get to defensive positions now." The response crackled back immediately. "Copy that. Setting up cover." Lena clutched the hard drive, her mind racing. They were trapped on top of a lighthouse with nowhere to run, and an enemy approaching with overwhelming force. Every instinct screamed at her to panic, but underneath the fear something else stirred, cold, calculating, tactical. "How long until they're in range?" she asked, her voice steadier than she expected. Jin checked his watch. 2 minutes, maybe less. "Then we have 2 minutes to make this count." Lena secured the hard drive in her vest pocket and moved to the edge of the platform, assessing angles and sight lines with eyes that knew what to look for, even if her mind didn't understand how. "They won't destroy the lighthouse. They need the evidence intact. That means they'll try to extract us alive." "That doesn't make this better." "Yes, it does. It means they'll be cautious, hesitant to use heavy weapons." She turned to him, and Jin saw something in her expression that made him go still. "We can use that." "Lena, no, listen to me." Her voice carried an authority she didn't remember earning. "Your men are positioned at ground level. When those helicopters land, they'll expect resistance there. They won't expect anyone to still be up here. Because staying up here is suicide. Or it's the one place they won't look immediately." Lena's hands moved to the railing, testing its stability. "How good a shot are you?" "Good enough." "Why?" "Because we're going to make them think we ran. Your men engage, create chaos, fall back to the vehicles. The enemy follows, thinking we're trying to escape by road." She met his eyes. "But we stay here. Wait until they've committed their forces to the ground assault, and then we take out their transportation." Jin stared at her. "You want to shoot down 3 helicopters with small arms fire?" "I want to ground them. Disable the rotors, damage the engines enough that they can't pursue us. Then we use the confusion to get to our vehicles and disappear before they can regroup." "That's insane." "You have a better plan?" Jin opened his mouth, then closed it. He looked at the approaching helicopters, then back at Lena, and something like pride flickered across his face. "The Ghost would have done exactly this." "Then maybe she's not as gone as we thought." Lena moved to the opposite side of the platform, calculating firing positions. "Tell your men the plan. And Jin, we're going to need a lot of luck." "Luck and the Ghost, that's what we had 3 years ago." Jin radioed his team, relaying the strategy in terse, efficient commands. His men didn't question it. They simply acknowledged and adapted. The helicopters grew larger, their rotors creating a thunderous roar that drowned out the ocean. They descended in formation, landing in the clearing near the vehicles. Doors slid open and armed operatives poured out, 12, 15, 20 of them, all wearing tactical gear and moving with military precision. Lena's breath quickened. This wasn't a retrieval team. This was an execution squad. "That's a lot of firepower for 2 people, she whispered. "They're not taking chances. Not with you." Jin settled into position beside her, his rifle already aimed. "Wait for my signal." Below, Jin's men opened fire. The crack of gunshots split the air, and the consortium operatives immediately took cover, returning fire with disciplined volleys. Jin's team fell back as planned, retreating toward the vehicles in what looked like a panicked escape attempt. The enemy bought it. Most of their forces pursued, moving in coordinated units to cut off the retreat. 3 operatives remained with the helicopters, pilots, and a guard. Now, Jin breathed. He fired first, his shot precise and controlled. One of the pilots went down, clutching his shoulder. Lena didn't think. Her body simply moved. She took the rifle Jin handed her, settled it against her shoulder with muscle memory that felt like breathing, and fired. The shot took the guard in the leg. He dropped, screaming. "Center bird," Jin said, already lining up his next shot. "Engine block, left side." Lena shifted her aim, found the target, squeezed the trigger. The bullet struck metal, and sparks flew. Jin's next shot hit the fuel line, and suddenly flame erupted from the helicopter's side. The remaining pilot abandoned his position, running for cover. Jin tracked him but held his fire. The man was no longer a threat. "Right, bird," Lena said, her voice distant, detached. She was operating on pure instinct now, her conscious mind a passenger in a body that remembered war. She fired 3 times in rapid succession, each shot striking critical components. The helicopter listed, its rotor assembly damaged beyond immediate repair. "Last one," Jin started to say, but movement caught Lena's eye. More operatives were returning, having realized the retreat was a diversion. They opened fire on the lighthouse, bullets sparking off stone and metal. Lena ducked, feeling the whip of air as a round passed inches from her head. "We need to move," Jin shouted over the gunfire. "Not yet. One more." Lena rose just enough to sight the final helicopter, ignoring the bullets chewing apart the railing beside her. She found the rotor mechanism, exhaled, and fired. The shot was perfect. The rotor assembly shattered, metal fragments spinning into the air. The helicopter was grounded. "Now we run." Jin grabbed her hand and they sprinted for the staircase. Behind them, the observation platform disintegrated under sustained fire, chunks of concrete exploding into dust. They descended faster than was safe, taking the steps 3 at a time, the tower shaking with each impact of bullets against stone. Halfway down, Jin's radio crackled. "Vehicles secure. We have an exit route. Southwest side, through the tree line." "Copy. 30 seconds. Jin burst through the door at the bottom, Lena right behind him. The firefight had intensified. His men were pinned behind the vehicles, trading shots with operatives who'd taken positions in the rocks. "Suppressing fire," Jin ordered into the radio. "On my mark. 3, 2, 1, mark." His team unleashed a coordinated volley, and in the brief window it created, Jin and Lena sprinted for the vehicles. Bullets kicked up dirt around their feet. Someone screamed. One of Jin's men went down, blood blooming across his chest. Lena's body moved before her mind processed the decision. She changed direction, running toward the fallen man instead of safety. She grabbed him under the arms, dragging him with strength she didn't know she possessed. "Lena, no!" Jin's voice was raw with fear, but he was already moving to help, laying down covering fire as she hauled the wounded man toward the SUV. They threw him into the back seat, and Jin's medic immediately began working to stop the bleeding. Lena dove into the front passenger seat, and Jin floored the accelerator. The vehicle lurched forward, smashing through a wooden barrier and into the forest. Behind them, the consortium operatives scrambled for their damaged helicopters, realizing too late that they had no way to pursue. The convoy tore through narrow forest roads, branches scraping the sides of the vehicles. Jin's hands white-knuckled on the wheel. Lena looked back to see the wounded man, barely conscious, his face gray with blood loss, but alive. "Why did you do that?" Jin demanded, his voice shaking with adrenaline and anger and something that might have been awe. "You could have been killed. He was one of yours. I wasn't going to leave him." Lena's hands trembled as she pressed them against her knees. "Besides, the ghost wouldn't have left him either." Jin's expression softened. "No, she wouldn't have." They drove for an hour, switching vehicles twice and doubling back on their route to lose any potential tracking. When Jin was finally satisfied they weren't being followed, he pulled into an abandoned industrial complex on the outskirts of a small town. The wounded man, his name was David, Lena learned, was stabilized and transferred to a secondary team that would get him to a safe hospital. The rest of Jin's people spread out to secure the perimeter and check for surveillance. Lena and Jin found themselves alone in what had once been a warehouse office, dust motes floating in shafts of light from broken windows. The hard drive sat on a desk between them, innocuous and world-changing all at once. We need to get this to multiple outlets simultaneously, Jin said, his tactical mind already working through the logistics. News organizations, law enforcement agencies we know aren't compromised, activist groups with secure communication channels. Release it all at once so they can't contain it. How long will that take to set up? 12 hours if we're fast, maybe less. Jin pulled out his phone, scrolling through encrypted contacts. I have people who can help. Journalists I trust, security analysts, even a few politicians who aren't on the consortium's payroll. Lena picked up the hard drive, turning it over in her hands. What if it's not enough? What if we release this and nothing changes? These people have enough power to weather almost anything. Then we make sure the evidence is undeniable. We verify every piece of data, cross-reference everything, build a case so airtight that even their lawyers can't find cracks. Jin set his phone down, looking at her with fierce determination. You didn't risk everything just to let them walk away. No, I didn't. Lena felt resolve hardening in her chest. But there's something else we need to do first. Something I should have done 3 years ago. What? We need to get ahead of them. Right now they're reacting, chasing us, trying to contain the damage. But if we want to truly win, we need to go on the offensive. Lena's mind was racing now, pieces clicking together. The files mentioned a council, the inner circle of the consortium. If we can identify them, expose them specifically, make them answer for their crimes publicly, they'll use every resource they have to silence us. Let them try. I'm done running, Lena met his eyes. And I'm done hiding. They took 3 years of my life. They took my memories, my son, my identity. I want them to know exactly who's destroying them. Jin studied her for a long moment. You're not Lena Carter anymore. No. And you're not quite Una Park either. No. She felt the truth of it settling into her bones. I'm something new. Something they created when they tried to erase me. I'm the ghost who remembered why she fought in the first place. A slow smile crossed Jin's face, fierce and proud and tinged with relief. Then let's give them a war they'll never forget. They spent the next 6 hours poring over the hard drive's contents, extracting names and faces from the encrypted files. The consortium's inner council consisted of 12 people, each one a titan in their respective field. A former Secretary of Defense, the CEO of the world's largest private equity firm, a federal judge with a lifetime appointment, a media mogul who controlled 3 major news networks, a pharmaceutical executive, a technology billionaire, a banking dynasty heir, and 5 others whose names alone could shake markets. These people are untouchable, Lena murmured, looking at their photographs. They've built empires specifically to insulate themselves from consequences. Everyone's touchable if you know where to press, Jin pointed to the financial records. Look here. They're not just corrupt, they're greedy. Every one of them has been skimming money from the consortium's operations, taking more than their agreed share. They don't trust each other because they're all stealing from each other. So we turn them against each other. Exactly. We release the evidence in stages. First, we expose the conspiracy as a whole. Then, before they can coordinate a defense, we release proof that specific council members have been embezzling. We make them paranoid, make them wonder who else is betraying them. Lena felt a grim satisfaction rising. Divide and conquer. It's what you would have done 3 years ago, what you probably planned to do before you had to go into hiding. Jin looked at her with something that might have been admiration. You're a strategist, Lena. You always were. You didn't just gather evidence, you weaponized it. They worked through the night building the release strategy. Jin's contacts began assembling on the other end of encrypted channels. Journalists who'd built careers on exposing corruption, hackers who believed in radical transparency, whistleblowers who'd been waiting for proof to support their claims. By dawn, they had a network ready to activate, but before they could finalize the plan, Jin's phone rang. He glanced at the screen, and his expression changed, fear and hope warring across his features. It's my sister, he said quietly. She never calls unless it's urgent. He answered, and Lena watched his face drain of color. When? Jin's voice was barely controlled. How many? No, don't leave. Fortify the position and wait for me. I'm coming now. He ended the call, his hands shaking. They found the safe house. They have Kai. The words hit Lena like a physical blow. Her son, the child she couldn't remember but would die to protect, was in the hands of people who killed without hesitation. How? She managed to ask. I don't know. The location was secure, completely off the grid. Jin was already moving, gathering weapons and equipment. It doesn't matter. We're going now. It's a trap. I know. They're using him as leverage. They want us to come. They want the hard drive. I know that too. Jin stopped, meeting her eyes with raw desperation. And I don't care. He's my son. Our son. I won't leave him. Lena felt the weight of the choice crushing down on her. The hard drive contained evidence that could save millions of lives, prevent economic collapse, stop a coordinated coup that would reshape global power. Trading it for one child, even her child, meant letting the consortium win. But looking at Jin's face, seeing the anguish there, she knew there was no real choice at all. We go, she said. But we go smart. We make them think we're desperate and willing to trade. And then we take our son back and burn them to the ground anyway. Jin's expression shifted, relief and love and fierce determination all at once. How? Lena's mind was already working through scenarios, calculating probabilities, finding the narrow path between impossible and suicidal. We give them a hard drive, just not this one. We create a duplicate, load it with enough real data to pass a surface verification, but corrupt the deeper files, make it look like the encryption degraded over time. They'll have experts verify it, which will buy us time. Maybe an hour, maybe less, but enough. She pulled out her own phone, scrolling through the contacts Jin had assembled. We activate the release protocol now. Send everything to your network with instructions to publish in 6 hours, regardless of what happens to us. That way, even if they kill us, the evidence still gets out. And Kai? We get him out during the verification. They'll be focused on the hard drive, confident they've won. That's when we strike. Jin moved to her, his hands framing her face with desperate tenderness. If this goes wrong, it won't. But if it does, if we don't make it out, I need you to know that these 3 years, watching you from a distance, making sure you were safe, it wasn't suffering, it was love. Every day I chose you and I'd do it again. Lena's eyes burned. We're going to make it out. We're going to get our son. And we're going to destroy everyone who tried to take him from us. She kissed him, quick and fierce and full of promises she intended to keep. But if we don't, if this is the end, then I'm glad I got to choose you too. Even if I can't remember falling in love the first time, I think I'm falling in love with you right now. Jin kissed her back, and for one moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them. Not the ghost and the crime lord, not Yuna and Jin, but two people who'd found each other against impossible odds and refused to let go. Then the moment passed, and they were soldiers again, preparing for war. Jin's technical specialist created the dummy hard drive in 45 minutes, working with equipment pulled from hidden caches throughout the city. The fake looked identical to the real one, with enough authentic data to fool a preliminary scan. Lena watched the process with tactical eyes, already rehearsing the coming confrontation in her mind. How many hostiles are we expecting? She asked. At least 20, probably more. Jin checked his weapons, 2 handguns, a rifle, spare magazines, flash grenades. The safe house is in the mountains, remote location, only 1 road in. They'll have the high ground in superior numbers. What about your people? I can get a team there, but not fast enough. By the time they arrive, it'll be over one way or another. Jin's expression was grim. We're going in alone. Lena felt the fear trying to take hold, the voice in her head screaming that this was suicide. But underneath the fear, the ghost whispered different truths, that impossible odds were just complicated problems, that being outnumbered meant enemies would get in each other's way. That desperation could be a weapon if wielded correctly. Then we make alone enough, she said. They drove toward the mountains in silence, each lost in their own thoughts. Lena found herself thinking about Kai, this child she couldn't remember but who carried her DNA, her features, her stubborn refusal to surrender. She thought about all the moments she'd missed. First words, first steps, the everyday magic of watching a person become themselves. And she thought about the woman who'd given all of that up to keep him safe. Yuna Park, the ghost. whoever she'd been. She'd made an impossible choice and lived with the consequences. Maybe she'd been broken. Maybe she'd been brilliant. Maybe she'd been both. But she'd been a mother who loved her son enough to forget him. "Tell me about him," Lena said quietly. "About Kai. Everything." Jin's hands tightened on the wheel, but his voice was soft when he spoke. He wakes up at dawn every morning and goes to the window to watch the sunrise. He says he's checking to make sure it comes back. When he was 2, he became convinced that if he didn't watch, the sun might not rise. Despite everything, Lena smiled. That's you. That need to understand how things work, to witness and verify. You used to do the same thing, wake up before dawn just to see the day begin. Jin's voice carried warmth and pain in equal measure. He's obsessed with maps, has them all over his room, on the walls, scattered across the floor. He traces routes with his finger, planning adventures he's too young to take, and he asks questions constantly. Why is the sky blue? Where does rain come from? What makes people good or bad? What do you tell him about good and bad? I tell him the truth, that people are complicated, that good people sometimes do bad things, and bad people sometimes do good things. That what matters is what you choose when the choice is hard. Jin glanced at her. He said that sounded like something his mother would say, and I realized your sister, my sister, had been telling him about you, about how you always tried to do the right thing even when it cost you. Lena's throat closed. I want to be worth that. Worth what she believed about me. You already are. The mountains rose ahead, dark and forbidding against the afternoon sky. Jin took a series of unmarked turnoffs, following a route he'd committed to memory. Finally, they arrived at a dirt road that climbed through dense forest toward a cabin barely visible through the trees. But before they reached it, Jin stopped the vehicle. They'll have the road watched, he said. We go the rest of the way on foot, through the forest. It'll take longer, but we'll have the element of surprise. They armed themselves and started through the trees, moving with practiced silence. Lena's body knew how to do this, how to step without snapping branches, how to use shadows for cover, how to become invisible in plain sight. The ghost training ran deeper than memory. As they approached the cabin, they could see figures moving around the perimeter, armed guards just as Jin had predicted. And in the center of it all, visible through the cabin's window, was a small boy sitting at a table with a woman Lena assumed was Jin's sister. Kai looked so small, so fragile, so completely unaware of the danger surrounding him. Something fierce and primal surged through Lena's chest. Not memory, but instinct, older than thought. This was her child, her son, and she would raise the earth before she let anyone harm him. Jin touched her shoulder, pointing. At the cabin's entrance stood a man in an expensive suit, looking completely out of place in the mountain setting. Even from a distance, Lena could see the calculated arrogance in his posture. Marcus Webb, Jin whispered. Consortium council member, former CIA director. He's running this operation personally. Why would someone that high up risk coming here? Because you're that important. The ghost who came back from the dead with evidence that could destroy them all. Jin's expression darkened. He's here to make sure this ends today. They circled the cabin, counting guards and noting positions. 23 hostiles total, heavily armed, with clear fields of fire covering all approaches. A frontal assault would be suicide. But Lena wasn't planning a frontal assault. The guards are focused outward, she murmured, watching for a rescue attempt from the road. They're not expecting anyone to already be this close. What are you thinking? I'm thinking we don't give them what they expect. Lena pointed to a propane tank near the cabin's rear. Create a distraction. Draw their attention to the front while I slip in the back. I get Kai and your sister out while you engage from range. That puts you in the most danger. Good. I'm the one they want alive. They'll hesitate before they shoot me. They won't hesitate with you. She met his eyes. Trust me. Trust the ghost. Jin looked like he wanted to argue, but instead he nodded. 5 minutes. I'll give you 5 minutes to get into position. Then I light this place up. Lena moved through the forest like smoke, closing the distance to the cabin's rear. She could hear voices now, guards talking, cigarettes being lit, the casual boredom of men who thought the dangerous part was over. They had no idea the ghost was home. She reached the propane tank and examined it quickly. A bullet in the right place would rupture it, create a spectacular explosion and fire. Not enough to damage the cabin seriously, but enough to cause panic and confusion. Lena settled into position, drew her weapon, and waited. Exactly 5 minutes later, Jin's rifle cracked from the forest. A guard dropped, then another. Chaos erupted as the consortium operatives scrambled for cover, trying to identify the shooter's position. And in that moment, Lena fired. The propane tank exploded in a ball of flame that lit up the mountainside. Guards shouted, some running toward the fire, others maintaining position. And in the confusion, Lena slipped through the back door into the cabin. Inside, Jin's sister had thrown herself over Kai, shielding him with her body. Marcus Webb stood at the window, barking orders into a radio. He turned at Lena's entrance, his eyes widening. "Hello, Marcus," Lena said, her weapon trained on his chest. "We need to talk about my son." Marcus Webb's hand moved toward the weapon at his hip, but Lena's gun never wavered. "Don't," she said quietly. "I've already killed 3 people today. A 4th won't cost me any sleep." Marcus froze, his calculating eyes taking in her stance, her grip, the cold certainty in her expression. The ghost. "So the rumors were true. You really did come back." "I never left. I just forgot for a while." Lena stepped further into the room, angling so she could see both Marcus and the door. "Now step away from the window and tell your men to stand down." "Or what? You'll shoot me in front of a child?" Marcus's smile was cold. "I don't think so. The ghost had lines she wouldn't cross. Civilian casualties, collateral damage. That's what made you predictable." "That was the old ghost. I'm still figuring out what lines the new one draws." Lena's finger tightened on the trigger. "But I know exactly where I draw the line when it comes to my son. Test me and find out." Something in her voice must have convinced him, because Marcus slowly raised his hands. "All right, let's everyone stay calm. No one needs to die today. Tell that to the guards your people killed when they took this house." Marcus's expression flickered. "Unfortunate but necessary. We needed leverage. The boy was the obvious choice." At the table, Kai had lifted his head, his wide green eyes, so much like Lena's own, staring at her with confusion and fear. Jin's sister, a woman in her 40s with kind features and steel in her spine, held him close. "It's okay, sweetheart," the woman murmured. "Everything's going to be okay." But Kai was looking at Lena with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Are you my mama?" he asked in a small, uncertain voice. "The one in the picture?" Lena's chest cracked open. She wanted to go to him, to hold him, to promise him safety and love, and everything she'd stolen from him by forgetting, but she couldn't. Not yet, not while Marcus stood between them. "Yes," she said softly. "I'm your mama, and I'm going to take you home." "My mama's dead," Kai said, but there was hope in his voice, desperate and fragile. "Auntie said so." "I know, baby, and I'm sorry, but I'm here now, and I promise I'm never leaving you again." Outside, the gunfire had intensified. Jin was engaging multiple targets, his shots precise and controlled, but he was one man against dozens. He couldn't hold them forever. "The hard drive," Marcus said, his tone shifting to negotiation. "Give it to me, and we all walk away. You get the boy. We get the evidence. No one else has to die." "You mean no one else except the millions who'll suffer when you execute Project Collapse?" Lena shook her head. "I've seen the plans, Marcus. The economic devastation, the governments you'll topple, the people who'll starve while you consolidate power. You really think I'd trade that for one child?" Most mothers would. Most mothers didn't spend years learning to think strategically. Lena reached into her vest with her free hand and pulled out the dummy hard drive. She tossed it to him. "There. You win. Take it and leave." Marcus caught it, his eyes narrowing with suspicion. "Just like that?" "Just like that. You have what you want. Now honor your word and let us go." Marcus examined the hard drive, then pulled out a portable scanner. Lena's pulse hammered as he connected it, watching the verification software run its checks. The seconds stretched like hours. If the duplicate didn't pass the initial scan, if Marcus's technical people were better than Jin's, the scanner beeped. Green light. "Preliminary verification complete," Marcus said slowly. The encryption signature matches. The file structure is intact. He looked at Lena with something like respect. You really are willing to trade the world for your family. Every time. Lena lowered her weapon slightly, a show of good faith. Now call off your people. Let us walk out of here. Marcus raised his radio. All units, stand down. We have the package. Repeat. We have the package. Let them go. The gunfire outside ceased. An eerie silence fell over the mountain, broken only by the crackle of flames from the propane explosion and the distant sound of wind through trees. Lena moved toward the table, her eyes never leaving Marcus. Come here, Kai. The boy looked at Jin's sister, who nodded tearfully. He slipped from her arms and walked slowly toward Lena, each step hesitant and brave. When he was close enough, Lena scooped him up with one arm, holding him against her chest while keeping her weapon trained on Marcus with the other hand. Kai was warm and solid and real in her arms. He smelled like soap and sunshine, and something indefinably him. 3 years of missing moments compressed into this single embrace. I've got you, she whispered into his hair. I've got you, baby. You smell different than the picture, Kai said solemnly, but you feel right. Lena's eyes burned. That's because I am right. I'm your mama, and I love you more than anything in this world. Jin's sister stood, gathering a bag that Lena assumed contained Kai's things. We should go, before they change their minds. But Marcus was staring at the hard drive in his hands, and something had shifted in his expression. Wait, this is too easy. You're the ghost. You don't surrender. You don't trade. His eyes snapped to Lena. This is a fake. Lena smiled, cold and sharp. Took you longer than I expected. Your technical people must be slipping. Marcus's face darkened with rage. He raised his radio. All units, they have a duplicate. Engage and... Lena fired. The bullet struck the radio, shattering it in Marcus's hand. He stumbled back and she was on him in an instant. Kai clutched to her chest with one arm while she pressed the gun against Marcus's temple with the other. New plan, she said. Me? You're coming with us. And if your people try to stop us, I paint this cabin with your brain matter. You won't. You don't kill unarmed. I told you. The old ghost had rules. I'm still writing mine. Lena grabbed him by the collar, forcing him toward the door. Move. Jin's sister took Kai from her arms. The separation physically hurt, and Lena used both hands to control Marcus, keeping the gun pressed against his spine as they moved toward the exit. She kicked the door open and stepped out into chaos. Jin's people had arrived. The clearing was now a battleground, both sides taking cover and trading fire. Jin himself was pinned behind an overturned vehicle, bleeding from a wound on his shoulder, but still fighting. Cease fire, Lena shouted, her voice cutting through the gunfire. Cease fire or Marcus Webb dies. The shooting slowed, then stopped. Consortium operatives emerged from cover, their weapons trained on Lena, but their fingers off the triggers. No one wanted to be the person who killed a council member. Let them go, Marcus said through gritted teeth. That's an order. Sir, the hard drive is a fake, I know, but we'll get the real one, just not today. Marcus's voice carried bitter resignation. Let them leave. We'll regroup and try again. But Lena had no intention of there being a next time. She kept Marcus in front of her as a shield, backing toward the vehicle where Jin waited. Her eyes scanned the hostile forces, counting numbers and calculating odds. 20 operatives still standing, maybe 30 seconds before someone decided to take the shot anyway. Jin, she called, get in the car. We're leaving. Jin moved despite his injury, his sister helping him while keeping Kai protected. They piled into the vehicle, and Lena forced Marcus in with them, keeping her gun pressed against his ribs. Drive, she told Jin's sister, who'd taken the wheel. The vehicle lurched forward, tires spitting gravel as they accelerated down the mountain road. Behind them, the consortium forces scrambled for their own transportation, but the confusion bought precious seconds. They'll follow us, Marcus said. You can't run forever. We're not running. We're buying time. Lena checked her watch. In about 3 hours, everything you've built is going to come crashing down. Every news outlet, every law enforcement agency, every activist group with a platform, they're all getting your files simultaneously. By tomorrow morning, the world will know exactly what the consortium is and who runs it. Marcus's face went pale. You're bluffing. Am I? You've spent 3 years trying to find that evidence. You really think I'd risk bringing it to a hostage exchange? Lena's smile was sharp. The real hard drive is already in the hands of people you can't threaten or buy. And in a few hours, it won't matter what you do to me because the information will be out there, permanent and undeniable. You've just signed your own death warrant. The council will hunt you to the ends of the earth. Let them try. By the time they mobilize, they'll be too busy defending themselves against criminal charges, congressional investigations, and international arrest warrants. Lena leaned close, her voice dropping to something dangerous. You destroyed my life, stole my memories, tried to kill my family, and now I'm going to watch your empire burn. Marcus stared at her with something that might have been fear. You're insane. No, I'm a mother protecting her child. There's a difference. They drove for another 10 minutes before Jin's sister pulled over at a prearranged location, a small airstrip where a private plane waited, engines already running.